Hello, so in today's book review I'm going to be talking about Disturbance by Jenna Clake, and this book has witchy kind of themes to it. I received this book in an Abominable Book Club book box, which is a horror subscription where you receive horror books. And yeah, when I first pulled this out of the box, I remember thinking this sounded quite intriguing. It was going to be quite atmospheric. You're following the main character, who is an unnamed female, and she's very isolated. She's living in a new apartment by herself. She works from home. She doesn't really talk about her family much in this book. So yeah, she's a very much isolated character who becomes quite obsessed with observing her neighbours, particularly a teenage girl who lives opposite her. One day she's looking out of her window and she notices the teenage girl with a friend, and they appear to be doing some sort of ritual, and she links it to witchcraft, which she then becomes quite interested in. She's hoping that it will help her deal with some issues she's having. It's very much a book about mental health. This woman, she is struggling to get over her past relationship. She had a very abusive past relationship. She has a very narcissistic ex-partner who, despite leaving him, she's still afraid of him. And lots of the chapters in this book are actually flashbacks to when she's in a relationship with this man. And it can be a little bit uncomfortable to read, because obviously you're reading about her being in an abusive relationship, which can be quite uncomfortable. But then it will flash back to present tense, and it's kind of showing the aftermath of what it's like from being in an abusive relationship. It's very much a book about abuse trauma and mental health, and how she's basically coping with that after, getting out of the relationship. Unfortunately for me, this book was a bit disappointing because, like I said, I got it in a horror book box, so I was expecting it to be horror. However, I would not describe this book as horror at all. It's definitely, I would say, like a slice of life mental health book, to be honest. And yeah, it ended up being quite disappointing for me. I did manage to finish it. I feel like if this book was any longer than it was, I wouldn't have finished it. I definitely would have DNF'd it, purely because nothing really happens. I read this book all the way through, and when I got to the end, I was like, yeah, nothing happens. It's very anticlimactic. It's quite slow as well, but I kept hoping it would pick up and get a little bit more witchy, because like I said, she's obsessed with this teenage girl next door, and then they end up becoming friends, all kind of friends, and she joins their little group and they start, diving a bit more into some witchy rituals. But it's very kind of loose with that concept. It doesn't really get in depth with it. Even the main character herself says that she doesn't fully believe in witchcraft. She doesn't fully believe the things they're doing are working. The weird things that are happening to her, the creepy vibes she keeps getting from her house, is basically just the aftermath of, basically she has PTSD. She has PTSD and she's dealing with difficult feelings after the breakup of this ex-boyfriend. And she's trying to move on. She's doing well in work. There's a few chapters where she kind of gets involved a little bit with a guy from work and they become friends, but again, nothing really comes of that. Her relationship with witchcraft, nothing really comes of that. Literally nothing really happens in this book. She ends up projecting a lot of her feelings onto this teenage girl, and she's comparing herself to this teenage girl. The teenage girl is also in a bit of a tricky relationship, and the main character is jumping to all these different conclusions, and then when she finds out what is actually going on, it's really, like I said, it's dull. It's a very boring story. I feel like if you're really into slice of life books and you're interested in books about mental health, you may find this interesting. It was a very easy book to read. The writing style was nice. Like I said, I read through it quite quickly. But yeah, if it had been any longer than 200 pages, then I definitely would have DNF'd it. Just because there was no real plot. You're just following the mental stream of this woman who's trying to cope with trauma. Which, if that's your thing, then you might like this. But if you're looking for a horror book which includes witchcraft, yeah, this probably isn't going to be the book for you. I mean, it says it's blazing with female rage, but I didn't really feel that from the main character. She just felt completely lost throughout the whole book. And it says unsettling and atmospheric. I didn't really feel that either. And yeah, I would even dispute the witchy claims, because really they do a couple of rituals and it's kind of, there is a bit of witchcraft in this book, but it's really not the central plot. The central plot really is about a woman who's isolated, living with PTSD, and how she's coping with that in her day-to-day life and how it's affecting her relationship with other people. So yeah, a bit of a disappointing read for me. I would give it 2 out of 5 stars because, like I said, I did enjoy the writing style. But yeah, I just wouldn't class this as horror. I think it was misrepresented as a horror book because it just really doesn't feel that way to me. And that's kind of the gist I got from other reviews on Goodreads. It did get a pretty good overall rating. I think it was like a 3.8 or something on Goodreads. So yeah, most people were cut down the middle with this one. Some people, the people who loved it, really loved it, and they liked the aspect of you know, the mental health kind of aspect of this book. But yeah, it just wasn't for me. I just wanted horror. I'm having a real hardcore horror kick at the minute, and this really didn't hit the spot. It was a little bit disappointing. I don't think this is a book that I'm going to be keeping on my shelf. You can see here it compares this book to other books such as Boy Parts, which I haven't read, and My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which I have read, and I would say it does kind of compare to that book. However, I really enjoyed My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and I didn't really enjoy this one because I feel like when you were going into Year of Rest and Relaxation, you knew what you were getting into. It was very plain about what the book was going to be about, which essentially is a woman with depression and struggling with that. But I knew that going into the book, and I really enjoyed it, whereas this one, it kind of marketed it more as a horror. And yeah, going into it thinking it's going to be a horror, it really fell flat for me. Unfortunately, it's why it got such a low rating. If I'd gone into it knowing it was a book about mental health, I may have felt differently. But yeah, I think because I got it in a horror book box, I was expecting horror, and it definitely wasn't. It just felt a little bit disappointing. So yeah, unfortunately, that's my review. I can see why some people would like this if you didn't think it was a horror. I can see that, but yeah, definitely disappointing as a horror book. It was just wrongly marketed, I think. So yeah, that's kind of my review on Disturbance. It was a bit of a disappointing one. It's definitely going to be going in my unhauled pile. But let me know your thoughts. Have you read this? What were your thoughts on this book? Are you interested in reading it? Yeah, it just wasn't for me, to be honest. Like I said, it was the wrong marketing. Going in expecting a horror and then it being completely not a horror book. And like I said, nothing happened, and that's fine if I was expecting that, because I don't mind books like that. Sometimes I read books where nothing really happens and they're slice of life books, but I got to be in the mood for that, and I wasn't in the mood for that this time, unfortunately. So yeah, that's kind of my overall rating of this one. A bit of a disappointment, but there we go. We can't they can't all be good books, can they? So yeah, that's my review. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, thank you for watching. Until next time, bye guys.